The apple of my eye of the tornado. It's culture story time! Yeah, drop the set. Isn't it cozy, homely? The crackling fire warms my soul, allowing me to forget the cold, harsh reality of the dates that I've endured. I'm sorry that the illusion of my contentedness faded away so quickly. Now all we're left with is this empty feeling, this space between us growing ever further apart until we dip below one another's horizons. And perhaps we'll wait eagerly for the dawn of a new love, a new passion to share, but I fear that we will never rise again. That, my friends, is despair. True and utter despair, an eternal darkness without the comforting glow of another person. But who am I to tell of this darkness? I am but one person who has traveled into this world of misery and returned. Not unscathed, mind you, but I returned nonetheless. Like the hero's journey, I have circled back to my original starting point, but I have changed. And it is of this change, this growth, that I wish to speak to you today. I have for you another tale from the tome of Tinder, indelibly marked upon its pages and etched into my mind. I call this tale, The Apple of My Eye of the Tornado. I was curled up in a blanket at home playing games when my phone lit up. I had a message on Tinder. Some background here. I had been talking to a girl on and off for a couple weeks prior to this message. Let's call her Apple. Apple was stunning, beautiful, and some other adjective that describes how gorgeous she was. Oh yeah, gorgeous, I could just use gorgeous. Anyway, we spoke about all manner of things, and I found out that she was an outdoorsy girl. She loved camping, hiking, and even riding horses. I had heard many stereotypes about equestrian girls, all of which made me even more eager to meet up with her. But then, I got the dreaded cold shoulder. Apple ghosted me completely. This was nothing new though, it happens all the time on Tinder. Well, to me at least. I must admit with some shame that I agonized over this ghosting for longer than I perhaps should have. We got along so well, she was exactly my type, and I thought it was all going perfectly. Ghosting evident as it was though, I knew I had to push her out of my mind. And then this message arrives out of the blue. It was like a twist at the end of a feel-good Disney film. I had an unexpected second chance to win the day. Apple apologized straight up, said she'd been busy and that she'd love to meet up with me, but she's only free today. Tomorrow she leaves on a month-long trip to South Africa. A month in Tinder time is enough to completely forget about someone, and I didn't want to let this opportunity slip through my fingers. I should tell you all at this point that I'm not exactly a devil-may-care, spur-of-the-moment kind of guy. I know, what a surprise. But at this point in my life, I had resolved myself to making more of an effort to act spontaneously. I looked outside. It was cold. It was wet. It was windy. A layering of dense cloud approached from the south, and the Arctic breeze was held at bay only by the modern conveniences my house afforded me. The weather dampened my spirits, to say the least. Doubts raced through my head. I used every excuse in the book in an attempt to avoid the nervousness of meeting up with a girl as pretty as Apple. She lives too far away, I'd need to shave, I don't feel pretty today, blah blah blah. Besides, I was warm playing games. I didn't want to leave the shelter of my safe abode, the comfort of my snuggly blanket. But I knew if I ever wanted to get snuggly with something other than my blanket, I'd have to hazard the wild weather. I threw the blanket off of myself, stood up, a bit too quickly, got dizzy for a second, regained my composure, took a nice hot shower, put on plenty of layers, and headed off to meet Apple. I realized soon after my departure that not only did Apple live a good hour away at least, but she also lived to the south. I would have to head into the approaching storm to see her, like a desperate salvager diving into the open maw of a beast just to haul up treasure from its gut. I drove headlong into the looming cloud cover. In the moment, I felt like a daring warrior, but in reality I was a hunched over bundle of nerves. The first part of the trip was uneventful. The weather was bad, but nothing I hadn't driven in before. Besides, I had the alluring messages of Apple swirling around in my head to keep me company. I took a turn, perhaps a little fast, and lost traction for a second, the steering wheel feeling weightless in my hands. I kept a cool head and remembered to let the car correct itself, gaining traction again and exiting the turn. I was a rally car driver for but a moment, and my adrenaline was pumping. What lengths was I willing to go to for that sweet, sweet Apple? I finally reached her house. You may be wondering why I called this girl Apple. See, she lives on an apple orchard, or near one at the very least, and often talked about the neat rows of trees and her time spent helping her dad pick fruit. The sight that lay before me held no trace of this idyllic country childhood. The wind battered the front gate and rain whipped the trees. I pulled into the drive a little, attempting to make out the address through my inundated windshield. It was the correct address, yet the gate wasn't open. I checked my messages, confirmed the address was right, and then messaged Apple asking her to open the gate. I waited 25 full minutes for a response. In that time, I reflected on what my life had become. I was sitting in the middle of a deluge just so I could meet a girl. Was I chasing too hard? I had spent an hour and a half in the driving downpour for Apple. I knew people who had done far more for a girl, both personally and through stories, but I wasn't sure I wanted to be included among their league. On the other hand, what if Apple and I ended up dating? Perhaps this could be a cute story to tell our friends and family months or years into our relationship. We could get married between the trees in the sun-kissed, fertile farmland. Maybe we would laugh about this one day. I passed the time like this, indulging my inane reveries. In hindsight, I should have checked to make sure carbon monoxide wasn't leaking into the cabin. Finally, a response. "Oh my god, I totally sent you my old address by mistake." She had moved house earlier that year, and now lived about 20 minutes away from where I currently was. I was frustrated, but I thought, I've already spent this much time getting here, what's another 20 minutes? I told her I was on my way, and buckled up. The cold was starting to get to me. Up until now, my burning desire to meet this girl had fueled my journey, but now, the freezing reality of my situation was apparent. My car at the time didn't have a working AC, so instead of the toasty oven you might be imagining, I was instead driving around in a meat locker on wheels, the metal frame providing all the comfort of an icy pole strapped to your grundle. I decided to play some music out of my phone to take my mind off the chill chest that was my car. Heat of the moment played out of my phone as though to mock me. What's next, shuffle player? Light my fire? Burning down the house? I swear if Set Fire to the Rain had have come on, I would have boycotted Adele. The choice to play music was a poor one. A combination of using my GPS, playing music, and forgetting to charge my phone resulted in the inevitable. My phone died, but I remembered where I was going. I was so close now. By the way, it wasn't 20 minutes to get to the next address. Perhaps if I was driving the Thrust SSC, I could have done it in 20 minutes, but alas, all I had was my 96 Holden Berliner. I found what I believed to be the correct address. The weather had eased off slightly, and it appeared my luck was turning around as the gate was open. I parked, walked up the lawn, and headed up the veranda. I usually hate this part of the meeting. I get nervous about making a good first impression, but this time, I felt nothing. In my mind, I had made the best first impression I possibly could. Besides, I was so drained from the trip and the awful weather that I really couldn't have cared less. I gave a knock on the door, and it was opened a few seconds later by an old woman. Apple's nana, perhaps? This was weird. I just assumed that Apple had the place to herself, but this was gonna be awkward. Hi, I'm Apple's friend, I blurted out. "I'm sorry," the weak voice replied. "Apple's friend," I said in a somewhat louder, perhaps patronizingly louder voice. The nana looked confused. Great, she's gone senile. Does a girl called Apple live here? "No, just me and Ginger." I must have gotten the wrong address. I held back a deep sigh and said as much to the old lady. I turned to walk away, and the old lady said, "Hold your horses, young man. While I've got you, do you mind helping me move a chair I've got in the sitting room? My son threw the chair in there all willy-nilly. I'm sure you could move it," the old lady said, gripping my bicep and smiling up at me. My polite nature acted quicker than I had time to think, and I suppose the old lady's flattery must have worked. You might be thinking, hey, that's kind of creepy. How astute of you. I hope you'll trust me when I say it was 100 times worse in the moment. As I stood there shimmying her leather armchair back and forth under her wavering direction and inhaling the mothball smell that permeated her dingy residence, I realized something. Why did I endeavor to be spontaneous? Planning is good. Planning helps people make good decisions. I like planning. From now on, I'm gonna plan more. If I had planned, Apple might have realized her mistake with the address earlier. If I had planned, I might have charged my phone. If I had planned, maybe I'd be smooching a Golden Delicious instead of fumbling around with a Granny Smith. I made as quick a getaway as I could, refusing the old lady's offer of tea that, for all I knew, could have been laced with Ambien. I used the last reserves of my energy to search the nearby back streets for an address that rang a bell, but my search proved fruitless. The twisting dirt roads began to confuse me, and I decided to get back out onto the main road while I still knew where I was. I saw a sign, Ashcombe Hedge Maze, 2 kilometers. How ironic. Exhausted, cold, wet, and disappointed, I made my way home. I put my phone on charge. I knew deep down that I made the right choice that day, that being spontaneous pays off, that taking advantage of opportunities is always worth it. But when you've just been kicked around by fate and you lay groaning in the gutter of life, it's hard to bring that thought to the front of your mind. My phone buzzed to life and I thought I better message Apple to let her know what happened. Imagine my surprise when I see we've unmatched on Tinder. Are you freaking kidding me? After all that, you unmatch me? It may be that she got upset when I stopped responding because my phone died, or that I was being catfished from the start. Or maybe Apple just got cold feet and decided to send me on a wild goose chase when I showed up at her gate. I don't know. And that's what frustrates me to this day. I'll never know. Not only am I lying in the gutter of life, but now Lady Luck has seen fit to spit on me as she strolls past with her haughty gait. I sighed and slid once again into the warm embrace of my snuggly blanket. There's always a silver lining though. Sure, that outing didn't go to plan, but I still felt like I took a leap. When I woke up the next day, the sun had finally emerged, and I was proud of myself, just a little bit, for taking that chance. I rolled over and checked my phone to find I'd received another message on Tinder. I rallied myself. The chase was on again. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you all next week. If you enjoy what we do here at CultureCrash, please consider supporting the show via our Patreon, where we have a bunch of awesome rewards, or by checking out our online store. All links are in the description below.